Welcome back. Artificial intelligence is changing the world across different sectors and industries and impacting us in more ways than we can imagine. Now, Africa's young population will be at the forefront of jobs being ushered in by AI. But is the continent ready for AI's transformative powers, and how can the continent prepare for an AI future? Well, joining me for this conversation is Mariam Adebola, Research Associate at Briter Bridges, and also joining us from the UK is Ted George, is the founder and Chief Narrative Officer of Kleos Advisory. Thank you, Mariam. Thank you, Ted, for joining us today. Let's just jump right in. Mariam, I'll start with you. How is AI, let's start with a jobs perspective now, how is artificial intelligence changing the outlook for the jobs of the future?
Thank you very much, Esther. I honestly believe that AI, artificial intelligence, is currently impacting how we currently work, and we should definitely expect more of that. You know, as technology continues to advance, more AI tools and applications will keep springing up and affect the way, we work, and also, transform different sectors, right? And transform different sectors, right? And this impact often can be felt, in two ways. So there is the positive part where new job opportunities will be created, and the less positive part where some jobs are likely to be replaced. And some of them that are coming to my mind is, data entry, bank tellers, where some of the tasks that people that own those roles do, AI tools can, perform those roles for them. But I think I will speak more on the positive part of AI, and a good example to share is definitely the popular AI tool ChatGPT that we all use, that that is making our lives much easier, and we use it for different tasks like composing emails, planning a trip, or even getting ideas for our project, right? And it's also interesting to see how different businesses in Nigeria and also across Africa are leveraging AI tools, in achieving operational efficiency. So if you often go to some websites, you will see how they've used AI tools, to automate some of the common questions they usually get from their customers, right, to automate the responses. And what this means is that someone doesn't have to stay behind the computer and be responding to, customers 24/7, right? And these are some of the ways that AI is using to transform how we work. And it's important for everyone, myself included, to prep for this, because we should expect to see more of this. And by prepping, we either, upskill or reskill so that we're not being left out.
Okay, hold that thought for us. Well, you made some very good points there. And of course, thinking about ChatGPT now, and obviously, very fascinating stuff. Ted, let me come to you. And perhaps this is an obvious question, but one that I will ask nonetheless. Is Africa ready for artificial intelligence? And what would you say, perhaps from what you've done, your research, what is the current adoption rate continent-wide?
Absolutely. Yes, no, thanks for having me on the program. I think you can say about AI that Africa is already embracing it, but we're very early on at the moment. If you think about chatbots are used now enormously for client engagement, for customer services. They use very little data. You think how popular WhatsApp is nowadays. A lot of that uses AI. Algorithms have been used for years. If you think about credit scoring, nowadays you can do this for micro lending, even micro insurance. Essentially, they crunch all the data in your mobile phone and they say automatically, we can lend you, or we can pre-approve this loan, and then a loan officer in the end actually approves it. And then, of course, at a higher level, if you think about the big trade that goes on in Africa, fraud and anti-money laundering detection, they've been using AI for quite a while. They can essentially build patterns of criminal behavior, and AI looks at, let's say, 10,000 transactions and says, these 12 look suspicious for these reasons. That's hugely powerful. But I think we're very early on. AI is coming from all different levels. I definitely want to talk about ChatGPT because I think it's dangerous as well as a very good tool. And I think, going back to what Mariam said, there's pros and cons here. There are people who are going to gain and there are going to be people who lose from it. But overall, if it's used properly as a tool, I think it will be very positive.
All right, shortly we'll talk about ethics and the risks and balancing the risks and opportunities. Mariam, let me come right back to you. We were talking about skills and jobs earlier, and you mentioned jobs like data entry, etc. Now, when we talk about reskilling or the jobs within the AI sphere or the fourth industrial revolution, if you will, most of these skills are, I mean, when you think about it in the context, many times the conversation is usually in the context of perhaps younger millennials to the Gen Zs and perhaps also Generation Alpha coming. But what about the older generation, the pre-millennials? What kind of jobs, what kind of job world would they be existing in? And would it just be these skills that are so, to think about, very technical?
Thank you so much, Esther. I think even though technology is advancing, AI is transforming how we work, there's still some things that are irreplaceable by AI. And some of them include, leadership skills. AI doesn't have empathy, right? And these are like the key skills that people also need, whether old, young. People also need to acquire for them to thrive in the current age that we find ourselves. And for people that now want to, dive deeper and gain a lot of technical expertise, that's where we now talk about the technical skills like the coding, learning how to build algorithm and the rest of them. And one good thing about, upskilling or reskilling in this age is that there are thousands of resources out there, in different formats that can really just get anyone started in, learning all these different skills.
Oh, well, that's definitely going to be interesting to see. But Ted, let me come back to you. Is artificial intelligence the great equalizer?
Sorry. Yes, I think it's a question of what AI gives and what it takes away at the same time. There's winners and losers. So on the benefits side, I think really we're going to see AI help drive Web 3.0. Web 2.0 was everything about the Internet of Things, IoT. We're very used to having everything connected nowadays. But Web 3.0 is the Internet of Skills, and AI can really help with that enormously. The ability to train and get professional skills virtually. That means it can go to anyone who basically has an internet connection in Africa. That really lowers the barrier for so much kinds of expertise. If you think nowadays you can go in there, you can have specific programs, and you can have essentially an AI trainer that looks at how you do on the programs, identifies weaknesses, suggests areas you can improve. I also think things like medical treatment and incredible advances with AI essentially being able to detect an illness months or years before it develops. So if you do pre-treatment, et cetera, you extend life, you hugely reduce the costs as well. So all of that is a huge benefit. But in terms of the negatives, I think the big one is it's already happening, jobs being taken away. It's very obvious if you look at freelance writers, for example, writers of blogs, articles in the press, newsletters. Since ChatGPT basically went public in February last year, those numbers of jobs have dropped off enormously, and that could die out entirely as a career for people who do that for their living. And then, of course, this idea of entry level of jobs, I think, is a real concern because we've all got to learn the ropes, right? You need to be a junior data analyst or a junior risk officer or a junior lawyer and slog through all those different things to learn the process. But if it's all done by AI, then what would have been 5 analysts is now 1 or 2. And so if we can't actually train up the humans to that level where we need them as experts, then AI could take over. So we're already seeing some losers, but the benefits are phenomenal for the general population.
All right, I just wanted to follow up on that before I bring Mariam in. So obviously there continue to be conversations around the benefits and the pros and cons of AI, and ensuring that the benefits outweigh the risk, and ensuring that AI in its totality is inclusive in its nature. We're seeing countries in Africa, some countries in Africa developing an AI strategy. Even the African Union is also trying to put together a pan-African AI strategy, perhaps to address issues of ethics, etc. So to your mind, what would that even look like in the fine print, and what would it aim to achieve, and why is it even important in the first place?
Well, it is critical. I mean, AI is so potentially powerful. It has to be regulated. It has to be understood. We've got to think about the pros and cons of it. The AU launched its working group on AI back in 2019. They're essentially tasked with drawing up guidelines for how to develop AI ethically. I think the important thing to say, it's like every tool. It needs to be managed. There have to be standards about how you use it. And I think the problem is there's so many unknowns about what AI could do. It's growing exponentially the whole time. No one would have thought this time, I mean, this year, if we went back to this time last year, ChatGPT, hardly anyone in the world even knew what it is. Now there are millions of daily users. So we can't really know the impacts of it. The whole world is grappling with this one. For me, the key point is education. Education to everyone about what actually AI is. And the bottom line is, it is maths. It seems like it's a sentient human being. You can ask a question to ChatGPT, and it is so convincing and eloquent the answer it brings back. But it's just maths. It doesn't understand what you're saying. And so some people think that something like ChatGPT is a super search engine, but it's not. It's a generative AI. It makes it up. And unfortunately, if it doesn't have the information there, it makes up something impressive. And we've seen many people come a cropper. There was a lawyer in court trying to fight a case. He cited 3 cases that ChatGPT had found for them. They were perfect because they didn't exist. They were completely made up, and he got into huge trouble. He may even end up getting disbarred. But the whole point here is that people can use ChatGPT and misinterpret what it's bringing. We need people to be aware of that, because as a tool, when you use it properly, it's incredibly powerful, and it would help everyone from the low-skilled right up to the highest levels of professions.
You're absolutely right, and some very, very key points that you've made there. Mariam, let's go back to Africa's young population. We established earlier that they will be at the forefront of jobs that have been ushered in by AI. However, there is a skills gap problem, which you also alluded to earlier. While all of that is happening, Africa still has several developmental challenges on the continent, from energy poverty to income inequality, environmental issues, etc. Could this be the generation, or let me rephrase that, could AI help the continent leapfrog some of these continent-wide issues? And could the generation that will be in the forefront of adopting or implementing or using the AI, if you will they be the generation to help Africa do that?
Thank you, Esther. So I mean, we've all heard it. AI is, transforming how we operate in the work, how we work, is driving innovation. And we've also read about how Africa has the youngest, the most energetic, young population across the world. But I've also come across different, conversations, especially online, where HR professionals would often, share their struggle in finding the right talent. So yeah, there is definitely a skill gap, and it's also interesting to also read different statistics of, the illiteracy rate in Africa. The rate is around, I think, 65%. And what this means is that a large number of people do not have the basic skills to use or even integrate, AI into what they currently do. But while, the problem exists, it's also interesting to, share some of the things that both the private and the public institutions are currently doing. I've seen some, companies where they take young people, they train them on the demand skills, really just to prepare them for the jobs of the future. But I believe that for us to see tangible results, for the youth to take the lead in using AI, in leveraging its benefits, in solving some of the present problems in Africa, I think both the public and the private institutions need to come together. They need to collaborate for us to see results that are really tangible.
Well, still on that point, and Ted mentioned a good point, which you just spoke about, also education. We've talked about acquiring skills at a level, perhaps at a graduate level, or while maybe middle management or just below that. But how about a different approach, going back to the education system, right from the primary school, right from the nursery school? I have heard about some schools right from the nursery where they're already introducing STEM courses to little kids, and it would appear that at that age, according to research out there, that is the time where they're able to absorb a lot, because they have the brains are still in this spongy stage, if you will. Perhaps should we do that by way of legislation, look at our entire education curriculum and just take it apart and add elements like entrepreneurship, and also in addition to that, tech related courses that can begin to prepare Africa's youth even from that level?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly agree with you. I think that's that's an approach we can definitely explore. And like I said before, both the private and the public institutions needs to come together. And, and one of them is definitely the universities also, right? How can we infuse, all these tech skills, all this tech knowledge into the curriculum so that people even have the knowledge about how all these different things work before they now, decide to expand on those knowledge.
Ted, let me bring you in here. From what you've seen so far with your research, obviously Africa is adopting AI. Whether or not the pace is the right one, I suppose, is also up for debate. But are there concerns, are you concerned that Africa could potentially fall behind? One. Two, what should the continent begin to do now? We know we've talked about how the AI strategies are being prepared. But while that is going on, AI is progressing and progressing rapidly also. What does the continent need to do to ensure that it's not left behind?
Well, I think there's very little danger Africa will be left behind. If you look at Briter Bridges' website, you can see the amount of fintechs and startups and technological innovation in Africa is extraordinary. And a lot of it is focused on African problems. So really for the government is just to continue to encourage building homegrown AI talent and looking at projects that specifically benefit Africa. But they've done it already. I mean, mobile money is an African product. They've shown the world how to do that with a mobile wallet. I think the important thing I would say is just going forward for the new generation of professionals who'll come up. That is kids in school doing STEM, but right up people leaving school or university. They're going to have to be adaptable. It's not just that they know this tech today. It's the fact they've got to be open and constantly ready to change. And I tell you, Africa is very innovative. It's got a young population. There are many people out there who will live up to that one. But the bigger point also is leadership. The future leaders of Africa are going to have to be very good at managing change, expecting the unexpected and dealing with it, dealing with crises. That's going to become much more common. Not just AI taking away jobs or changing things, but obviously climate change, huge social issues as well. So I think basically we need to be all adaptable, and we need to have leaders who really have that vision and be ready for things to be tricky and come up with solutions. And AI, if it's used as a tool, is going to be a real help, but we really need to be aware of the dangers of it and educate ourselves about it.
Right. Final question for the both of you, starting with Mariam. Mariam, what excites you the most about AI? And when you think about an AI-powered Africa, what do you see?
Okay, thank you, Esther. I think for me, I've seen, the potential of AI. I've seen it works, and I've also seen how it can honestly transform, Africa as a continent and help us to solve, some of the pressing problems that we currently have. And to dive deep into that, one of them is definitely how AI tools and application can, help health professionals in, being efficient in the treatments and diagnosis of diseases, or even help them to manage their medical records much better. Right. I think that really gets me excited as to how AI can, transform the continent. And as a youth, I'm excited to see how I can also take an active role in seeing that happen.
Right. Ted?
Yeah, I think for me, it really is just the use of AI as a friction remover. That gets to the heart of what innovation is about and digital innovation. If you add AI to any existing process, you can remove all those frictions. It might be straight away, you could say to a credit officer, okay, this person is pre or pro for a loan. Here are 4 issues to look at, but you still have a human being who engages them. Or this is the right approach. You put in a proposal for some kind of investment. It comes up with a series of questions. The human being then uses it. So if you remove multiple frictions, you get faster payments, better services for people, more personalization. All of that added together is a huge benefit. So really, for me, it's the multiplier effect that it can really have on the digital transformation.
Well, thank you so much, Ted. Well said. I must thank you both for your time today. Well, ready or not, AI is here, so we all need to get with the program. I've been speaking to Ted George, founder and chief narrative officer, Kleos Advisory, and Mariam Adebola, research associate at Briter Bridges, looking at the future of AI here on the African continent and how it's going to change the future of jobs. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back with our international headlines. Join us again.